That went off the outside of the goal. Brock Besser turns and advances the puck to the Montreal blue line. Pettersson tangled up way behind the play. He's hurt. Elias Pettersson is down.
Yes, and this is, okay, the referees look after the star players. And there are no penalties, no interference call. Here's the play.
Kotkaniemi was tangled up.
And there's Kotkaniemi, and that's not a penalty. I mean, he hooks him from behind to start with and then pulls him down. Okay, now Pettersson and Kotkaniemi go into the boards. Puck's going the other way. There's Kotkaniemi with the stick in the waist, grabs him, spins him around. And you can see his right leg is tangled up all underneath. And Kotkaniemi doesn't get a penalty for that.
The good news is that Pettersson is going to the dressing room under his own steam.
Hit him on stopping, then
a leg bend that way.
It was an accident. We got tangled up. We both fell down, and I got in an awkward position, and it wasn't a dirty play or anything. He apologized afterwards, which shows good sportsmanship from him. So it was just unlucky for me, but it's nothing too serious.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hockey Podcast, the first hockey podcast of 2019, recorded on Saturday, January 5th, of course, we got lots to talk about. Of course, the big news is the clips that you heard in the beginning here about Elias Pettersson, and we'll get into that. We'll also get into couple of other things, Michael Dipietro and the World Juniors, All-Star Game Snubs, the Flame Sharks rivalry, but the big chunk of this is actually going to be around Elias Pettersson. Not only the injury, the impact, and the reaction, but we're going to talk a little bit on this show about whether the Vancouver Canucks should speed up the rebuild. And we'll get into that a bit. But joining, as always, is Sean from Calgary. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good. Do you have snow there?
It's just hanging on. We've been in the midst of a Chinook of the last week, so whatever snow we have is just hanging on for dear life.
And Tyler in Terrace?
Hey guys, we had some snow overnight here. It looked like this week it was going to all melt away. Had some white for Christmas there, and then it looked like we were going to have an early spring, but the snow has returned today.
Well, it's feeling a little hockeyish weather. The weather is... we had snow here, but then it left as well. It's feeling hockey-like weather. Mm-hmm. So... It's funny, in the messages, Sean messaged me and says we need to talk about Pettersson and if he speeds up the rebuild. Not 2 minutes after that message, I saw that message, was that play that has been talked about all over Vancouver, Jesperi Kotkaniemi's incident with Elias Pettersson, which has hyperventilated everybody. At this point, it seems like he's okay. He's walking under his own power. He is going to miss tonight's game against Toronto Maple Leafs, but doesn't look as serious as it could have been. So first of all, what is your reaction to the actual play? Let's start there because there was a lot of fan reaction, quite angry Canuck fan reaction to this play. So in terms of the play, what were your thoughts?
It was unfortunate play. Kotkaniemi was just trying to keep Pettersson from getting away from him because he was his check, and it just happened to tangle up a little too much, and Pettersson got put in an awkward position when they fell. It's just unfortunate.
Yeah, I think the other part of that too is that Pettersson kind of tried to use his body to push back, so to speak, against that, and may have got himself into more trouble in doing so. It could have just been simply a trip. It would have just gone down cleanly, but instead he got more tangled up with Kotkaniemi and ended up having his leg buckle underneath. So an unfortunate play, but to me, Kotkaniemi came over to Pettersson and just tried to tie him up, and Pettersson never had the puck. So it should have been a 2-minute interference penalty, in my opinion.
Okay, yeah, I would have agreed with a penalty for sure. I did not see this as a dirty intentional hit.
No.
At all. I looked at it several times. So I did a tape for someone, and I'm going to start here. Someone asked me to do a tape, and since there has been some comparisons to Pettersson and Wayne Gretzky, I'm going to use this parallel. When Wayne Gretzky was touched, clean or not, there was someone, if it wasn't Semenko, it was someone on the Oilers that would have walked over to the player and said, "You do not touch this guy no matter what." We had the reaction, which I don't think is a bad reaction necessarily from Pettersson, which we heard at the beginning. Travis Green called it a clean hit. He was very upset about that hit in Florida earlier in the year. Do you think the Canuck players should have done something? What are your, because there were a lot of fans that thought that too. What were your thoughts on that?
There was that play was not reaction worthy. It was a weird accident as opposed to the Matheson, which was a complete and utter like attempt to hurt someone with the way he threw Pettersson down, and you saw the Canucks react to the Pettersson and Besser issues when they were playing. When they're playing Tampa
Bay? Yeah.
Yeah. So the team's done it when it's needed to be, when it's needed. If you take out the Matheson issue, but ever since then they've been sticking up for each other, and this one it wasn't worth it. It wasn't like Kotkaniemi took his stick and hacked Pettersson down. It was just an unfortunate play that caused Pettersson to hurt his knee somehow. So
yeah, it's hard to make the argument that this was a cheap shot. I mean, it wasn't a veteran player trying to give him the welcome to the show treatment here or anything like that. It's another rookie, in fact, a younger player. So the Canucks are trailing in the game at the time, didn't want to be shorthanded. I mean, it always comes back to looking at the scoreboard at times as well. And so I don't know. I'm not too worked up over the lack of retribution over this. It is frustrating again, though, that there's no penalty. So when you don't see retribution and you don't see a penalty called, fans are throwing their hands up, going WTF, right? Like they're wondering how this can be.
We've had this conversation around McDavid a couple of times where the Oilers fans, Oilers media have made the claim that McDavid has been abused. Are you sensing that Pettersson has been a bit abused, or is it norm for what is in today's NHL?
I think it's about normal. It's such a fast game, and if you're behind a step on anyone, it's going to be tough to catch up, and players are just going to try and hook and grab and hold their way to as much as they can without getting called to keep that from happening.
I thought Pettersson took quite a bit of abuse in the game against Ottawa, and yet he still put up 3 goals. So, the kid's determined. He knows what's up. He knows that he's going to get, tight coverage, and the guys are going to play him hard, and he's just... he doesn't seem to be wanting to make any issue out of it, and he doesn't want to come across as being whiny about it. He just wants to keep playing.
Yeah, the guy has an intense focus, and it's not like, and I think as John Shannon tweeted, I think credit needs to be given to both Travis Green and the organization, Travis Green specifically, and Pettersson for kind of downplaying this and not making it a bigger issue than it could have been, because there were Canuck fans on Twitter that wanted something to be done. And in one sense, it doesn't seem reasonable. In another sense, today, according to Jeff Patterson anyway, the number one guy in the number one line is Brandon Sutter. We'll talk about the lineups in a second. So that it is a significant difference of what's going to happen in the game. And it is really unfortunate. I mean, as much as there's hatred to the Toronto Maple Leafs. The fact is it's the number one market in Canada right now. We can't really debate that. And Pettersson on Hockey Night in Canada in Toronto would have been something cool to see. And it's really unfortunate. But I think you have to give credit to how Travis Green handled this and just kind of, okay, it's a play. It happens. Let's move on.
Well, it does make you wonder, why they decided to take that route. To me, it looks like they don't want to lose focus on the bigger prize, and that is trying to get into the playoffs. They're not expecting this to be a long-term injury. Their schedule's not too heavy this month, so they're looking at it like, look, the next guys have to step up, and we'll soldier on without him. They went 3-3 the last time he missed some time due to injury over the Matheson thing, and they weathered that storm, so to speak. So they're focused. They're focused. They don't want this to be a distraction.
Yeah, and hopefully it is only a short-term injury for Pettersson, because the Canucks don't play until Thursday after tonight. So that's a lot of time off to recover, and maybe he only misses 1 or 2 games because of, 1 or 2 games because of it. So.
Yeah, so the lineup, looking here, according to Brendan Batchelor, I'm just going to pull this up. They had Horvat. This is the line that Brendan Batchelor was tweeting from Sportsnet. Jeff Pettersson had something different, but it was Horvat, Roussel, Eriksson, Granlund, Barchi, Virtanen, Sutter, Goldobin, Besser, Beagle, Schaller, Mott, and then defense Edler, Tanev, Hutton, Gudbranson, Pouliot, Stetcher, and probably Markstrom. We'll get into Thatcher Demko on the show as well. Thoughts on that lineup?
I don't know. It's interesting because you've got looks like the offense is spread out a bit on 3 lines. You got Horvat driving the play on the first one. You've got Berchi and Virtanen, who can sort of be the driving the play on that second line, and then you've got Goldobin and Besser with Sutter. So I don't know. I think that's just going to how it's going to start. I see Green going into the blender quickly with the lines tonight.
Yeah, I think you have to go with it spread out like this, given that you've got Schaller in there and Goldobin back in now, and no, the trickle down effect there is significant. But I don't mind this look. And we've seen that with Green many times this season, where he'll shuffle. He won't wait to shuffle. That's for sure.
Yeah,
so we'll see.
I think what's also interesting here is I don't think that there was a forward call-up.
No, there wasn't.
So maybe, yeah, so that's probably good news as well, that it's not that long for Pettersson, and he did get out of there.
Well, I think they're still waiting for the results. I think he had an MRI or something yesterday, so I bet you they're waiting to see, because of the long layoff between games after tonight. There's no need to rush someone up, because they've got enough bodies. They'd have to make a roster move to call someone up anyways, because Sutter's coming back.
Yeah.
So there's no rush to do that. So they'll see how they can do tonight and go from there.
Just a note, Jeff Pettersson also reported that Pettersson was spotted at the rink with no bandage on his knee, no wrap on his knee, no discernible limp. Not playing tonight, but another indication that it's not too serious.
Yeah, and that's great news, not only for the Canuck fans, but I think for the league. I think these are the kind of players that people want to see. I mean, we'll get into the All-Star game a little bit, but this is a guy that people are going to watch at the All-Star game. You could see McDavid. You will see McDavid play with Pettersson. That will be fascinating. So, at some point, what were you going to say, Tyler?
Oh, I was just going to say. I mean, if you're Hockey Night in Canada, you got to be disappointed with this. I mean, much of the focus of the telecast was going to be about Pettersson versus the Leafs young guns, and the big discussion around the Canucks as part of the telecast would have been Pettersson, and they had to sit down yesterday with Nick Kyprios, which is going to air during the pregame show in full. So they had, I'm sure, big plans to make a big deal out of this matchup, and for him to not be playing, I mean, that's, it speaks to what you were just saying. It's not great for the league either.
No, it's not. But it's that's maybe one of the things going forward. I wonder in the future here. This is kind of a little bit of a tangent. Next year, with a guy like this, I mean, I know Toronto's still the number one market, but would you, if you're Hockey Night in Canada, with a guy like Pettersson, do you not consider a little bit more 4:00 games with Vancouver next year?
No.
Okay.
No. It's just there's too much going on out east, right? So the only time you have the 4:00 games is if they're playing Toronto. You might be able to look for an Ottawa or a Montreal, but when the Canucks go out there, the Saturday game is usually the Toronto game.
Yeah, I don't see much that they can do there. I mean, there are times where the Canucks play in that earlier time slot when they're at some Eastern U.S. location. But you have more games in that early time slot, and you're usually competing against a Leafs game, so it doesn't really fit very well unless it's an off night for the Leafs, and then they can, like this year they had the Canucks at home against Montreal in the early time slot. Like they could maybe look at getting maybe another one of those in there somewhere with Ottawa, let's say, as or even Winnipeg or something like that. But there's probably not much they can do to get more Canuck games into that early time slot, just considering how much Toronto and Montreal in particular play on Saturdays.
Yeah, I mean, and it's fortunate in the sense that for Hockey Night in Canada that Toronto is doing so well, but Montreal and Ottawa are not doing so well, and they're a bit of a tougher watch right now. But it's you probably want to get as much airtime to your best players as you can. But to me, I haven't seen a lot of McDavid and the Oilers on TV this year. Like it seems to me to be more Canuck and Flames for the late window. I mean, is that my imagination? I haven't seen a lot of Oilers outside.
You'd have to count them up. I mean, they're the late game tonight against Los Angeles, but you'd have to count them up. I'm not sure there's a huge difference there.
Yeah. Anyway, just that's a sidetrack here.
Yeah.
So 44 games in, 20-20-4, 1 point as of now outside the 7-game losing streak of the Anaheim Ducks. Sometimes I still want to call them the Mighty Ducks. I'm not going to lie. But they're in the playoff hunt. I did some research this morning. Vancouver, in terms of their cap space as of this year, in terms of draft picks, they have a ton. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3 in the 6, 8, 9 picks in 7 rounds. They are their cap space is over $9 million. The Stanley Cup champion Washington Capitals, if you are interested, are under 100,000 or deadline cap space under 15,000. The Edmonton Oilers have $50,000 of cap space. The Toronto Maple Leafs are actually in good shape, really, for a little bit over $4 million. The Colorado Avalanche, which I'm interested in because they're over $10 million, and we'll get into them a little bit. So the question that came up here, and the reason I'm bringing all of this up, is with the emergence of Pettersson, it gives an interesting opportunity because you probably are going to have to re-sign Pettersson much earlier than the intention of the entry-level contract was. And it's quite likely that you are looking, I would imagine, between $8 to $10 million. You've got Brock Besser you're going to have to re-sign for sure. You've got Bo Horvat on the books until 23-24, so you're not too worried about that. You may need to renegotiate that, but I'm not entirely sure that that's a big deal. You got some other long-term deals there. So if you're the Vancouver Canucks, and I gave just 4 examples of teams that the former Stanley Cup champions, I think Colorado, the reason I picked Colorado is because especially if they win the lottery this year, they're going to be very dangerous for years to come. You've got the Edmonton Oilers, who, we just examined because they've spent a lot of money on 2 guys. And you got the Leafs here. I just used 4 examples. Do you, quote unquote, speed up this rebuild and add some bigger name talent, or do you keep the course?
Well, when I said speed up the rebuilds, my thing is you don't go and trade away your assets to get players. You still have to look at the long-term approach of it, but that shouldn't stop them from going out after top-end players in free agency, like a Mark Stone or a Erik Karlsson or Artemi Panarin to beef up the blue line or the top 6 forwards, and go into next season and the season after as playoff contenders growing into cup contenders. Because when you look at the past of the successful teams and franchises since the cap has come in, the majority of the winners, the cup winners, have had 1 or 2 one or two of their like really good like franchise players that they're building around on entry level contracts. You look at Pittsburgh did it with Sidney and Evgeny Malkin at the beginning. Chicago did it with Taves and Kane. LA did it with Doughty. Like, it's you need to find value in your top end players still being on entry level contracts to be successful in the league these days. If you're not, then it just becomes you start digging yourself a hole, and it can still be done, and you can still win. Look at Washington last year, but you're still going to be it's a long, tough road to figure out the right mix with the cap limiting you.
So this basically means the Canucks have to be contending 2 years from now, while Pettersson is still
you look at it
on entry level.
Pettersson and Quinn Hughes.
Yep.
Because Quinn Hughes is likely going to be signing with the Canucks at the end of this year, pulling Brock Besser and losing and then burning that first year of the entry level contract. So then they have Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson to sign after 2 more seasons.
Yep.
So you're looking at this. The way I look at it is, you look at this summer is figuring out how to add pieces that they're missing within the organization now. Whether that's another big winger, or figuring out how to fix the blue line, and then the season after that, the 1920 season, is more development and growth and figuring out how they can become not only compete for the playoffs, but where they need to improve enough to be legit contenders for the cup in the 2021 season.
I mean, it seems kind of wild to be talking about, a couple of years from now making a deep playoff run. But I mean, the way Sean lays it out there, to me, is the path forward. I mean, they definitely need to be aggressive in free agency this year, not for grit or for veteran presence or for other needs like they've been doing with free agency in the past few years. They need an immediate impact guy that's gonna push them not over the top, but further towards the top of that hump, so to speak.
And the other thing is that you have to look at who do you want to bring back as well. And specifically, that's the Alex Edler question.
Yeah.
Do you want to bring him back, especially with Ole Hulevy being a lot more of a question mark going into next season with his injury this season? I think you bring Edler back, and so you have a left side defense of Edler, Quinn Hughes, and Ben Hutton. I don't think anyone would complain about that.
No, and the thing with Edler is I think you can get him back at a good price. I think he wants to stay. It's the only team he's played for. He's been very clear. He likes Vancouver. He hasn't wanted to waive his no trade clause. He's having a great season. The team's on the up. So it seems like a good fit for both sides to get him signed to a good price.
Yeah, and you can offer him something a little bit more in money, if at least cap wise, on a 2-year deal. With knowing the fact that after that, then you're going to have to really rebuild and rejig the cap structure of the team with Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson coming off their ELCs in that aspect. So if I'm Jim Benning and I'm the Canucks, I'm looking at signing Edler to a 2-year deal, and I'm willing to pay him a little bit more cap wise to make that happen, because it makes the most sense for the development of the team and the cap structure now and going forwards.
Okay, so let me play a little bit of the devil's advocate here. I'm not saying that I disagree with you, but when it comes to unrestricted free agency on July 1st, there's a lot of overpayment. As an example, the Canucks, Louis Eriksson, the Flames, Troy Bauer, the Oilers, Milan Lucic. How do you balance out getting a guy like Mark Stone and not playing the super overpay game? You are going to have to overpay if you that's just the reality of the situation. Where is that limit of like, okay, I'm not going to cross this line?
Yeah, the difference between the Louis Erikssons and the Troy Browers, and then as opposed to the Mark Stones, the Artemi Panarins, is age. Both Stone and Panarin are 26 right now, so they're still in their mid-20s, late 20s, and they're in their prime, as opposed to the Eriksson and the Browers, who were sort of late 20s, early 30s. And on the downside of their careers, the Canucks have to be smart about it, and if they do decide to go after one of these players, they have to do their due diligence and make sure that that they can fit into the style that Travis Green wants to play, and they need to make sure that they are in a spot that they aren't going to be regretting the contract in 3, 4, 5 years.
Kevin, are you asking, is there a cap hit that they just can't exceed, like say 9 million, 10 million? Like,
yeah.
You're thinking that in terms of that? Yeah. I mean, I think with the Canucks, if they're going to make a splash in free agency, I don't know about anything with a double digit, 10 million plus cap hit. That's they still got. They've got Horvat under contract for a few years now, but they've still got Besser to re-sign. They've got Pettersson and Hughes down the road, and that makes you nervous a little bit when you get into those double-digit signings, such as the John Tavares in Toronto situation there, where it puts a lot of pressure on getting all these guys signed and keeping the team together. But I don't know. For me, if they were to like Mark Stone right now, his cap hit with the Senators is $7.35 million. Like if they were to sign him for just under 9, if they wanted that type of player, I think I could feel comfortable with that. But I don't know about much more than that.
Yeah, the 10 mil mark is definitely the boundary at this point. I think you could make it a case that defending that you could go after maybe Erik Karlsson at the 10 mil $10 million mark if they really wanted to. But looking at the list right now, he's really the only one that I would go over that mark for. And plus, again, you still have to look at how will this affect them re-signing Pettersson and Hughes when they're coming off their ELCs, because that'll be the bar setter, depending on who they sign as well.
So, with McDavid, the big conversation around the McDavid talk was he's going to attract free agents. He hasn't necessarily done that. There's other issues. We won't get into that. Is A, Pettersson a free agent attractable guy that players would want to play with? And B, is Vancouver an attractive free agent market? Because Brian Burke has mentioned that the only one that really is for superstars right now is probably Toronto.
I think Vancouver has been in the past. Under the Mike Gillis era and regime, they were an attractive destination for free agents, but that was because Gillis went out of his way to make it that, and that's the Canucks need to do that again, and add that, and then the potential for the top end players, someone who might be playing with Pettersson if it's on the power play or 5-on-5. Yes, he could be an attraction for a skilled winger, or even the next one that could make a huge swing for the Canucks is Quinn Hughes, because you hear everything you hear about him a lot from scouts who watch him play live, especially right now with the World Juniors, and they're blown away with how he controls the game, with his skating ability and how he thinks the game. There's a lot of people saying that he's an immediate impact player for the Canucks when he moves up from the NCAA to the NHL, which would be either end of this season or beginning of next.
I think Vancouver is an attractive free agent market in terms of having Pettersson there. I mean, he makes everybody better around him. If the team looks like they're on the up, you combine that with the fact that Vancouver's a warm, nice city to live in. I don't see problems with trying to attract free agents. It really does come down to, what kind of money can you offer the player, and the situation and the chances of winning, and all that's coming together a little more for the Canucks in terms of being able to compete with other teams for those big names.
And the other question that it's coming to mind here is, how do you approach contracts now with Pettersson and Boeser? Because, sorry to pick on the Oilers again, but they spent a lot of money on two guys, and I'm not saying that they're not two terrible hockey players, but some people are pointing out that Gaudreau and Monahan have the same amount of points with less money than McDavid and Draisaitl. So how do you approach a Pettersson-Boeser contract, building this team into a cup contender?
Well, that's I think part of what the talk they're going to be having with Brock Boeser and his agent this coming up till June, because you understand that he deserves to get paid, despite the fact that he'll have less than 2 seasons of NHL hockey under his belt, but he's just proven that he's an elite sniper. But yeah, he's going to have to. I think you could see with Boeser a slightly shorter term deal for a little bit less money, but with Pettersson it's different because he's so far away. With 2 years, 3 years away, you don't know what the cap's going to look like. You don't know how the team has developed at that point. With Pettersson, it's a wait and see approach. He's not due for a contract until 2021. So wait and see with him. But with Boeser, you have to. You can't necessarily try and pull a Kyle Dubas and play super hardball with Boeser, but you got to do what Benny needs to do what he can to keep the cap hit, I think, below 8.
For me, Bo Horvat's kind of where you kind of have to base things off of. Like, he's got a cap hit of $5.5 million for this season and 4 more. You account for inflationary increases in there, and you say that, to me, I would say that Besser should be somewhere in similar range, and then you'd say Pettersson's the top paid guy. So, Sean, you said 8 for cap.
I said 8.
Yeah,
I would say 8. Like, anything under 8 for Besser is going to be good. Because you look at Nylander getting 9. So
yeah, and if Pettersson keeps this going the way he is, it'll be pretty hard to 2 years from now get him signed for less than 10.
Mm-hmm.
But I think somewhere in that 10 to 11 range would be a pretty good deal, considering some of the other contracts around the league.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. Back in the summer, we were talking about the demise of Linden, what the Canucks organization was at, kind of having no expectations, to now possibly talking about a cup run in 2 years is something to be said.
Well, it's just you have to they need to set themselves up for that, whether it happens or not.
Mm-hmm.
But
the history says that.
Mm-hmm. You need to plan for, because that's what happens when you get your game changing player. You need to take advantage of their low cap hit as much as possible, and unfortunately, the Canucks aren't in a position to be, legit contenders next season unless they make a massive move to shore up their defense, and other players start stepping up to give them more depth up front. But as well as whatever. Markstrom continues to improve, and Demko can step up and be a legit option as an NHL backup for next season. There's too many ifs for next season, so you have to look at the season after as your the go for it season. You look at how the Leafs have done it for this season too. They went out and got Tavares, knowing that they have to go out and re-sign Marner and Matthews next summer. Yeah. And they felt that this was the time and space to make that big move and go for it.
Yeah, and I mean, the Leafs are a good example to bring up, because they were 30th place. They got lucky and retained the first pick there, and were able to get Matthews. And here we are now, the third year he's been with the team. They've been in the playoffs twice, and now they're a contender. Are they a strong contender? Well, there's other great teams out there, but they are, they're looking at the cup this year. That's what they're aiming for. I mean, this isn't about just winning a round.
But at the same time, the interesting thing is the way that everything is set up. It's not unreasonable to think that they still could lose in the first round. Boston's not going to be, if it's Boston or Buffalo, Boston's not going to be an easy out if they play Boston. And Buffalo, we haven't talked a lot about them, but I don't think that that's going to necessarily be an easy out for Toronto.
Nope.
And even if it's the second round, they're running into a juggernaut that's, Tampa. So they may not even get out of their divisional round yet, too. So it is interesting, but kind of look. But at the same time, if you're a Leafs fan, okay, maybe they don't make it this year, but they're certainly on their way for the next couple of years to get out of that division. They're in better shape than, even with the 4 contracts. They're actually not in terrible shape, and their defense is developing. So, you sometimes have to learn to lose in order to win. Ask the Washington Capitals. So they're not in terrible shape for sure.
Nope. No, and I there's a difference between speeding up the rebuild and trying to make shortcuts, right? Like none of what we're saying here is an attempt at shortcutting the process. It's just, okay, yeah, you're trending in the right direction. How can we get a little closer to that goal? What piece can you add that's going to help make that happen a little more quickly?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's assessing where the weaknesses are, and it's pretty obvious where they are on the Canucks. It's the right side of the defense, and then winger depth up front. You've got outside of Besser, and you can make outside Besser, Goldobin, and Berchi, and then you can throw Virtanen in. It's the skill level of the wingers is lacking. So you got to figure that out. And then there's still the Goldobin issue as well. Is he going to become a trade piece, or is he going to become a legit part of the top six who doesn't get scratched to wake himself to get woken up again?
Yeah.
Big game for him tonight. He's getting his chance now with injury to get out of the coach's doghouse. He's running out of chances. So
yeah.
Be
I wouldn't
interesting
be
to see how he
surprised
responds.
if at one point we see a few shifts with Horvat centering Goldobin and Besser.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. And even looking forward, but looking forward at some of the other teams here that I see still being in the Western Conference contention. In our division, we have Calgary. I think will be fine. San Jose has been consistently there, so I don't see San Jose going away. I think Vegas will be there. I think, to me, the teams that are on the downswing are the Ducks, the Kings, and the Oilers for now. So, you got that. And then you got, I think, to me, it's Colorado, Winnipeg, Nashville. And especially, as I said, if Colorado gets that first pick with Jack Hughes and Nathan McKinnon, that offense, they're going to be around for a long time. I think, like Chicago's, the St. Louis's, the Dallases is in an interesting situation. I think they're kind of trending in the same. But in Minnesota, they're kind of trending in the same. But really, there's a good opportunity now for the Canucks to make this move, especially when there's a number of the teams that have been the sort of the standard bearers in the Western Conference on the downside.
Yeah, and then of those teams that you're talking about, the Flames, they've got 2/3 defensemen in the lineup every night, playing decent minutes every night that are on entry level contracts.
Yep.
And then you've got Colorado's just littered with them, which includes Mikko Rantanen on his entry level contract. So it's it's like you got to get value for your entry level contracts, and if you're not, then that's when you're in trouble. So those teams that do have those, Winnipeg's got Line A and Connor, and so like they've all got them, and that's why you got as the Canucks now that they've got their franchise center in Pettersson, and not to mention a really probably a top. You could make an argument that they're top 10 in the league in a 1-2 punch up the middle with Pettersson and Horvat. It's the time is now to start building around them. And trying to look at that two-year window to make the most of Pettersson on his entry-level contract.
Yeah. I do agree. I mean, you do need two centers to win a cup, and I think for sure. Like you need two.
You need three, honestly. You need three really good centers to win the cup, and the Canucks have two right now. They've got Sutter and Beagle sort of there, but I don't see both of them being there in 2 years. I see one of them being moved on, specifically to make room for Adam Gaudette, who
that's not
as we speak today has put up 2 goals and assist in playing for Utica. So,
speaking of Utica. There was a trade this week. Anders Nielsen has moved on after not the greatest game ever, New Year's Eve afternoon in New Jersey. But Anders Nielsen has moved on to Ottawa to make room for Thatcher Demko to be called up. There's a really interesting thread, by the way, from Mike McKenna's wife, Rachel, which I think is a really important thread to talk about a guy has been away from his family. It's bounced from Ottawa to Vancouver to Philadelphia this week. Sometimes we talk about the glory of being in the NHL, and we don't always reflect on the family matters, but that's maybe for another time. But Thatcher Demko is living his dream. He has been called up. What are we expecting from Demko this year and next year going forward?
It's this year. It's like they need to give him the sort of cherry pick starts for him to let him learn the differences between the AHL and the NHL, because there are drastic differences, and you see that transition period with every goalie. And then, so I think it was Kevin Woodley was saying if it was up to him, he would have Demko starting at least once every 7 to 10 days.
Yeah.
So if you do that, then he's going to get a decent amount of starts, because again, going back into that 2-year window program, you want to be going into next year feeling completely confident with a tandem of Markstrom and Demko, and then having Dipietro coming up and taking over the Utica Comets goaltending position. So, and then again next year it would be the first full-time season, and probably I would say a 60-40 split in terms of starts between the two. It would be ideal.
Miami with a shot that went off the outside of the goal.
Sorry.
Brock
Technical
Besser.
issue there. I don't know what happened. I'm pressing a button I should have. Go ahead.
No worries. I was just going to say, in regards to 60-40, that's, to me, that's ideal, but probably I'm feeling like that's a little bit optimistic probably for next year. I mean, if you can get a 65-35 or a 70-30 split, Markstrom and Demko, that would be, I could still be happy with that too.
Do you think that this was the right timing, or was this because it was time to move on from Nielsen? We never really had this conversation. We knew Demko was going to come up at some point this year, but I think we suspected a little bit later.
I think it was a combination of Demko playing well enough and him not really having much more to learn at the AHL level. If anything, him staying down there longer would detriment his growth as a goalie, as well as Nielsen just not being consistent enough and not producing enough as a backup for the Canucks.
I feel it was mostly that they'd seen enough from Nielsen to say he's not getting it done for us. The win-loss record just was too stark, I think, and they're confident enough in what they've seen from Demko this year now that he's recovered from that concussion, and they pulled the trigger on the deal.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting, because I do also think as much as you need 2 or 3 centers, you need a quality blue line. But I think in this day and age, to run with one goalie all the way from the way that the season is from September, basically October to June, I think you need 2 goalies to win a cup. So, I mean, I think I'm looking at the Flames right now. I mean, Rittich is probably the guy, but Mike Smith is certainly questionable. But then who do you have as a backup out there? So if you can get Demko at least somewhat ready in that 2-year window that you're talking about, Sean, I think that's another advantage for the Canucks going forward, because you need 2 goalies, but it's almost tough right now to find a really solid 2 goalie combination that can get you to where you're going, because it's tough.
Yeah, you can't, if you're looking to make a deep run, you can't have your starting goaltender starting 60, 70 games. You need to be able to rely on the backup to take the load off, because the fatigue level on these goalies, the way the game is played now is quite big.
Yeah, I know we have seen evidence of this earlier in the year when Nielsen was hurt and they were running with Markstrom. I mean, he basically ran out of gas, and they threw in Richard Bachman for a game, and it was a disaster. I mean, there was a reason why they weren't playing him, but they were basically forced to. Markstrom was on fumes, and they went to the other guy and hoped for the best.
Yeah.
So I mean, and you can't make the playoffs like that. Like you guys have been saying, you need to have those two goalies. That second guy has to be dependable.
Yeah. So let's also now move into, speaking of this, it's the transition now into maybe the goalie of the future. And the World Juniors is happening. The gold medal game is tonight. Is Quinn Hughes and the U.S. facing the Finns, who defeated Canada earlier this week. Michael Dipietro got quite an ovation after the game, and was on an interview yesterday on Sportsnet 650, and has kind of made himself sort of a folk hero. First of all, I guess maybe let's start with the Dipietro start. From a Canucks perspective, what does that give you going forward? Are you excited about Dipietro? Do we need to be kind of, let's still cool our jets of where he is? Let's give this kind of guy some development, or did you see some hope here?
He was the best player on Team Canada, and it wasn't even close. He was cool, calm, collected, playing in front of a raucous crowd. He had a little bit more pressure on him because he's a Canucks prospect, and it didn't bother him at all. It just was a couple unlucky bounces.
I'm in total agreement on that.
So the Canucks should be very, very excited. Canucks should be very excited for what they have with Dipietro, because you again, and then you look at the whole future and window is he's going to be. He'll spend 2-3 years in Utica going forwards, and then move up from there, just like Demko did. So, continue to keep the goaltender train and pipeline moving is very key, because you need to be able to move on unless you find a full on franchise goalie like a Carey Price.
My comment the other night with Dipietro was it was a fun glimpse into the future for Canuck fans to see him playing on that stage with that kind of pressure and a big crowd, and how cool he was in the net was just awesome. And obviously it's junior as opposed to the NHL, but sometimes goalies collapse under that kind of pressure, and he certainly did, and he got it done. Unfortunately, the team in front of him wasn't able to do the job and get more goals for him.
So what happened? We have a few days that we cleared this up. What happened?
I don't think they had the right mix of players on the right lines or whatever to find that magic. That magic chemistry that you need to win this tournament. Let's just put it this: they had 2 goals in their last 2 games. Not good enough.
Yeah, I thought they had too many pass first players. That was kind of what stood out to me. Like, they had their chances, they just weren't taking them. Like they it seemed a little cute at times, a little bit too much trying to set up something as opposed to just getting pucks on net. I mean, the Finland goal that tied the game was it was total fluke. But a puck on net to me is never a bad puck on net. And I don't know. I would have liked to see Canada take that approach a little bit more as the tournament went on. Other than that, though, I mean, you have what you have. Sometimes you get to this tournament in a year where your country's depth is a little thinner than maybe the year or two before. And they had a couple of experienced guys on the team last year that were injured and couldn't play. So, so those things are factors as well. But beyond that, I mean, we shouldn't be afraid as Canadians to tip our cap to the other team and say we got beat. Finland's been a tough opponent for Canada for a few years now.
Yeah, it's tough when it's the 2 goals that they do score are fluky. So, yeah. And I do agree. Yeah, they were a bit too they didn't play. And I hate using this term, but quote unquote Canadian hockey. There wasn't enough north-south. There was a lot of east-west, a lot of fancy stick work that didn't result in anything.
Yeah.
It's the same frustration that Canucks fans have with some Canucks fans, and I bet you Travis Green and the coaching staff have with Goldobin, is that there's a lot of flash, but he's, in terms of producing, it leaves you wanting more at times.
There was some criticism of Tim Hunter coaching. I heard that too, but are we now seeing the reality is we're not the dominant nation in hockey anymore? Is that fair to say, or is this a selection thing, or is it just the reality is hockey is this tournament specifically anybody could win, and you could make an argument that anybody, U.S. could win or Finland could win. I wouldn't be surprised who wins tonight. I still don't know who I'm thinking to win.
I think the parity, at least between the top 5-6 teams, is quite vast now, and there's not much separating them. So you have one off night or a couple off nights, and yeah, you could definitely see as Canadians saw, you could definitely see the team bowing out earlier than expected. Because you look at that Finnish team still hasn't played up to their potential either, but they've managed to squeak by. They've got 2-3 lines that can really skate and really score, and then the States have arguably the best defenseman in the tournament. They're all super skilled up front too. So it's there's enough parity within the top 4 or 5 nations now that any one of them can win it going into each year.
Yeah, I think I've felt for a couple years, 2-3 years, that the idea that Canada should automatically be the favorite is behind us. I mean, it's other countries are catching up. I mean, look at what Switzerland's doing. I mean, they have a chance at a medal today. They this isn't the first time that they've gotten through the quarterfinals and ended up in the bronze medal game. They didn't win the last time that occurred. That was in 2010. But it's a game that's been growing. I mean, the NHL's been trying to grow their brand of hockey around the world. We've had NHLers at the Olympics. The World Junior Championship has taken on a much bigger profile around the world, in large part because of TSN's involvement. But it is what it is. I don't think it should be this crisis for anybody that the other countries are playing better. It just makes the tournament more interesting to watch.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and Sweden out in quarterfinals as well. So,
oh yeah, they're probably having some soul searching as well.
Yeah, you're gonna have, especially with this tournament where waves of players age out. You're gonna have seasons and years where you're not as skilled or deep as you were in the previously. So, yeah, I think the fact that Canada isn't the overwhelming favorite every year is good for the tournament too.
All right, now the All-Star, and I actually forgot about this because I don't pay it. To be honest with you, I'm not a big person that spends a lot of time looking at All-Star rosters. But the All-Star roster came out, and of course, Elias Pettersson is going to be there, Johnny Gaudreau, Connor McDavid, but there were some snubs, particularly the Leaf fans are scratching their heads over Mitch Marner not being there, which I could actually kind of see where the Leaf fans are coming from. I think that there's a legitimate argument there, but were there any kind of All-Star snubs or surprise or did you guys care? Do you care about this All-Star format and this All-Star game? Does it matter to you?
Not really. I'll watch it. It's fun, but whoever gets there is not necessarily big. I'm not necessarily going to go get crazy whether or not Mark Giordano or Morgan Riley get invited. Mitch Marner only has his teammates to thank for not making that roster, anyways. With
to me, Marner's the most glaring one.
Marner and Giordano are the two that stick out to me. And I would say even Morgan Riley. If I was picking them, I would have had Morgan Riley and Mitch Marner over Tavares and Matthews. I feel they've had better seasons than those two.
It's interesting to me that the Pacific Division team has 3 San Jose Sharks on it. Now, yes, the Sharks are hosting the All-Star game, but Pavelski, Burns, and Karlsson, I mean, I think you can make strong arguments for Burns and Karlsson. Pavelski's a great player. I like Joe Pavelski, but you look at the other forwards, and you've got Pettersson and McDavid and Gaudreau, Clayton Keller's there, but as the Arizona representative. I mean, I don't know. To me, Pavelski, I think his spot could have been taken up by somebody else personally, but then again, you've got this whole every team has to have representation, right? So Arizona's for sure going to get a guy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I guess to me, I mean, it's a fascinating format, but I understand why they're doing it because it's corporate and it's money and it's advertising, but I almost would just prefer that they just take the entire 10-day break and, okay, yeah, these who we recognize of the all-star players and it's nice, but let's maybe do something maybe at the end of the year or something. I'm not a big fan. I don't know, I understand the corporate of it, but it almost hurts teams and helps teams.
Yeah, if I was to do anything with changing the format, it would be keep the 3-on-3, but go back to the draft.
Yeah, I was saying that to Tyler before we got on. Yeah, that would be a fun way to do it.
Yeah,
because I had got more entertainment watching the draft than the actual game at times. So bring that back and have 4 captains and have them draft their teams. That would be fun.
I like the 3-on-3. I like the fact that there is a prize to be won for the winning team. So when you have the 2 mini games to get down to that final mini game, the final there, the players take it pretty serious. I think they play a little harder for that one once they've made it through the first part. But yeah, I think the draft, when they had that helped really build a lot of hype and excitement for the All-Star game, and the skills competition is always great to watch. I like the skills competition, but yeah, that draft thing would be good. You could, sports leagues really love the whole fan voting thing. Major League Baseball does a great job of that as well for the All-Star game. I mean, I think you can still have the fan voting component to determine the 4 divisional captains, and then I think that would be enough as far as a fan component. Then let some hockey people pick a pool of players to attend the game, and then let the players do that little draft thing.
Yeah, because it would be fun. Because I mean, it's going to be fun to watch McDavid and Pettersson play on the same line. That'll be fun. But yeah, it just creates a. Are you angry that Ovechkin's planning not to go?
No.
No, that doesn't bother me at all. What bothers me is that he's going to be punished for it.
Yeah,
I understand why they punish him, I'm not upset about it either. But to be honest, it should be an honor to be selected. But you also can, for me, it's like everyone's different. And Obi's been to how many games? All-Star games?
Yeah, I mean, he's answered the call over and over and over again for the All-Star game, and always gives the fans a great show. He had a short off season. He's getting older. He'd like to take a pass this time, and to me, what's wrong with that? It's just a chance for somebody else to get into this event, and there's lots of great names that are left off every year. So, I mean, I understand why they want to have a deterrent in place, but I don't know. Maybe that needs to be tweaked. Maybe maybe there needs to be some parameters that make you eligible to take a pass on it if you so choose.
Yeah,
because like he's being like he's really. It's not like he's done this before.
No, he hasn't. Maybe if you're in the Final Four, you can. Like maybe there's an exemption if you get to the Final Four of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't. That wouldn't be such a bad thing because it is a long year, and but okay, yeah, whatever. The last thing is there appears to be a new budding rivalry in the NHL, which is sort of the I'm calling it the Jets Predators 2018-2019. New Year's Eve, the Calgary Flames and the San Jose Sharks went at it. It was 8-5. The Flames, I actually would have argued would have made a statement about the game, the way that they pretty dominated the game. But what got heated was Sam Bennett late in the game with under 20 seconds left hit Radim Sadiq with at the very least you could argue it was a questionable hit. And I do support the Flames, but I tweeted I did not like that hit. I just thought the game was over. There's no need to do it. But he does it. He wasn't suspended. Evander Kane says after the game, it's sure interesting to see how people get taller when I leave, which makes February 7th between the Sharks and the Flames must watch hockey. What did you make of that? Is there a budding rivalry here? Is this something that you're interested in going forward?
Yeah, I think both teams are at the top of the division and battling it out. So they're and both it's good hockey. Good hockey. It's skilled hockey. So adding a little heat to it's not gonna slow things down and make it unwatchable. So yeah, it's very interesting to see them develop a rivalry. This is what the playoff format is designed to do as well. Is to create these rivalries within the division.
It's noteworthy. Unless the Flames and Sharks meet in the playoffs and get some more like current playoff history, to me it's not much of a rivalry per se. But yeah, they are in the same division. They see each other often. And what's wrong with a little spice in the game? It's something that's disappearing as the years go by. So a little nastiness is always interesting. Gets people going.
Yeah, and I think the Flames have been a very interesting team this year to watch because there have been some sparks of controversy. You go back to the Oilers game about in mid-November, and you got this one here. They're at least watchable, which they haven't been for the last few years, which is fascinating. My thing was with if that was Sadiq hitting Bennett late, Flames fans would have been outraged, and there were a lot of Flame fans that, and I know this is fans base and homerism and whatever, but there were a lot of Flame fans that were like, "Oh yeah, it was late, but whatever." It's just like it's kind of a bit interesting to watch the reactions of the fans here, which I think Sharks fans were quite angry about what Bennett did, and Flames fans were shrugging. But if it would have been the complete opposite, we would have seen an outrage from Shark fans, or we would have seen an outrage from Flame fans and Sharks. So that is intriguing as well, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's just fan bases being fan bases. Part of the Pettersson debate within the Canucks fan base was how other fan bases would react if their star players had that, and yeah, there's you get blinded by your fandom, and that's just the reality of being a sports fan.
For sure. Is there anything else we did not touch on that you guys wanted to talk about?
No, I think I'm good.
Yeah, no, I think we for 1 week's worth of discussion, I think we got it all.
Good. All right. So yeah, follow Sean at
Beauty Connect 03
and Tyler at
T-Noble, T-N-O-B-L-E.
And you can follow me at KVOLE. We will be back next week. It'll be another interesting week. We will talk to you all very soon. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.